my Mexican kitchen here in Switzerland. Today I have a very special recipe to share with you guys. It's especially special for Mexicans or for people who love learning about different cultures and trying interesting different foods. The recipe for today is Day of the Dead bread, which is very special. It's a 2,000-year tradition. It wasn't originally how we celebrate it now, but it's a really old and very respectful tradition in Mexico, which is to celebrate the dead, to honor them, to remember all those loved ones who have passed away. And we make altars in November where we put this bread. It's not a Halloween. It's nothing to do with Halloween. It's very different and it's very special to us Mexicans. So I hope you guys enjoy this bread. It's really yummy. The ingredients you need to make your Day of the Dead bread are 200 grams of butter cut into cubes, 2 teaspoons of orange blossom water, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of orange zest, 4 eggs, 1 cup of milk, 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast, half a cup of sugar. Okay, so hair's pulled back so it doesn't end up in any of the stuff we're cooking. We're going to activate our yeast. That's the first step. So if you guys already saw the conchas video, you know that with any bread that has yeast, you have to activate it. For that, what you do is you put milk in a bowl. We're going to put the yeast, and we're going to put 1 tablespoon of sugar. Everything is sprinkled, and you can give it a light mix with a spoon if you want. And you're going to let it rest for 30 to 40 minutes. I'll leave it the 40 minutes. You know your yeast is activated if it foamed up. It's really gonna look really different from when you started, that it's just a watery mixture, to the end, which is a lot of foam. So let's activate our yeast. Okay, so our yeast has been activated. Something very important that I forgot to say earlier, sorry you guys, was that in order for yeast to activate, it has to be either room temperature milk or warm, preferably warm, but if it's room temperature, it'll also work. If you try cold milk, your yeast most probably won't work. So you guys have to use warm milk for it to activate, to foam up. And the next step is very easy. We just add all the remaining ingredients into the bowl. We mix them. I'm going to be using the KitchenAid and the hook attachment. You can also do this by hand if you don't have a professional mixer. It's just a bit more work, but you can do it. It's nothing out of this world. We're going to mix for about 15 minutes, and once we mix it, the dough, we form it into a ball, and we cover the bowl with a wet towel, a damp towel, and we let it rest for at least 2 hours. If you let it rest more, it's super much better. If not, the 2 hours is sufficient. With this time that it's resting, the dough should blow up. It should double in mass, and then from there we'll go on to the next step. Our dough is finished. One important thing is the dough is never ever gonna turn out the same for anyone, not even every time I make it, and here's why. It depends on the temperature that's happening around you, if it's a warm day, a cold day, a humid day. It depends on the altitude of where you are. It depends on the size of the eggs you're using. So your dough is never gonna turn out the same. So that's why it's very important to know how your dough has to be when you're, what kind of dough to expect when you make the recipe. It has to be a very smooth dough. It has to be non-sticky, that it doesn't stick to your hands. If you do anything, it comes off your hands. It has to be elastic. And so if you have this dough, if it comes out like this, it means you're done. So the next step is just to ball it up, put it in the bowl, and cover it with a towel and let it rest for 2 hours so it doubles in size. And the smell. This smells like my grandmom, and probably like many other people's grandmoms. I mean, I don't know if people still use the orange blossom flavor or essence in perfumes, but I smell this and it reminds me of my grandmom, so that's very nice. My dough, it needed more flour, so I just added a few spoonfuls more until I saw it got the consistency I was describing earlier, the smooth and elastic consistency. It doesn't have to be sticky, it doesn't have to stay on your hands, it has to come off your hands when you're handling it, when you're kneading it. So if once you see it has this, it means you're good to go. Maybe you don't need to add any extra flour, maybe you do, but if you do, don't worry, that's perfectly normal, and it will happen every time you do a recipe. You have to know your dough. Let's put it to rest now. So we're ready for our next step. First of all, you guys are going to need 2 baking trays, and you need to line them up with some baking paper. After that, then we can start with our dough. As you can see, it blew up really nicely. It's really, really nice, so good job for us. The next step is we have to punch the air out, and once the air is out, then we can transfer our dough onto a surface, and from there we're going to cut it up into 3 pieces, 3 equal pieces. 2 of those pieces we're going to ball up because we're only making 2 large breads. So 2 of those pieces are going to be our bread. The other one we can just leave, it doesn't need to be shaped or anything. And we're going to let them rest for 1 hour. Once that hour is done, then we can go on to the next step. For the glaze, you're going to need a pinch of salt, a pinch of sugar, 1 egg whisked, and 1½ tablespoons of water. Okay, so our dough rested for an hour. It's grown a bit more. We're going to make a glaze now. This glaze is kind of be like a glue. So what we have to do is we're going to whisk 1 egg, and we're going to add the pinch of salt, sugar, and water in here. Whisk it all together, and we're going to brush it onto the dough, and then I'll show you the next step because this is kind of like a Lego set. You have to put pieces together in there. Glazing the dough. As you guys can remember, in the part where we were dividing the dough, we divided it into 3 parts. Here's 2, which are the main part of the bread. The third part gets rolled out into a log, and we cut it into 10 equal pieces. Of those pieces, it's 5 for each bread. 4 of those pieces we're going to roll out into little logs, and then we're going to shape them to look kind of like bones. That's the whole point of the Day of the Dead bread, the little decorations that go on top. And the 5th piece, that one gets rolled up into a ball. And once we set up the pieces how they're supposed to go, we glaze them again with the same mixture we used on the bread. Breads together. They look really cool. The next step is preheating your oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius. Once it reaches the temperature you need, then you're going to put them in the oven for 30 to 35 minutes at the same temperature you preheated. And once they're cooked, then you can take them out and let them cool down for a bit. So I already started with one of the breads. What you have to do is you have to melt a bit of butter and you have to have some extra sugar. There's no exact amount. You guys have to kind of calculate how much butter you think you're going to need to glaze over the bread, and also the sugar to sprinkle over. Just as a fact, for those of you who aren't aware of what the Day of the Dead is, I highly recommend the cartoon Coco. It's really well made. It's really nice. It explains in a very beautiful way how the Day of the Dead, what it means. It's nothing creepy, it's nothing awful or that people adore death. We don't adore death as Mexicans. It's a day where you're supposed to remember those people who died. So it's a beautiful tradition because you're honoring a memory of a person that you loved a lot. And or even people you never knew. It's like a great grandfather, grandmother, whatever. You're honoring all the people who are from your past. So with this bread, it's usually put in an altar. You make an altar with pictures of your loved ones. You decorate it with flowers, these special orange flowers, can't remember, marigolds I think they're called in English. You put their favorite food. That's very important. You have to put the favorite food of the deceased person. And you put these breads. These breads, what they have is, they symbolize like the east, west, north, and south. So you're always aware of your direction. It has the skull, which is the little ball, and the orange blossom essence. That's supposed to remind you like of what the people from the past smelled like. I guess it was a very common smell. So in this case, it reminds me of my grandmother. It highly reminds me of her. And it's really delicious. I mean, I wouldn't say just make it for the Day of the Dead. You can make this any time of the year you want. You don't have to be that traditional, and you can enjoy it during the year. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spread the butter over it, the melted butter, and the sugar. You have to sprinkle it over, and it's just a sweet coating that goes in the end so you can finish off your bread. And this, you do it when the bread is cold, or cool down, not cold. If you do it hot, the butter is just going to be absorbed by the bread. Okay, so we're done with the bread. The golden color you see is because of the egg wash. So if you don't want it to be so intense, I mean, that's the characteristic part of the bread. It's a nice golden brown. But if you don't like that color for some reason, you can just do it with the egg white, or you can not do an egg wash. I like the cold color. That's what makes it special, the special part of the bread. I hope you guys enjoyed the whole tradition of Day of the Dead, the celebration. I mean, you don't have to be Mexican to celebrate a person that passed away. It's for all of us. It's a very nice tradition. There's many cultures which probably do celebrate. I'm not aware because I need to read more probably about this. But the very nice thing that we do in Mexico is the Day of the Dead altar, where you put as I mentioned before, you put food, you put favorite things of that person. You put their favorite food. Maybe they liked playing dominoes, so you can put a domino set. Maybe they like drinking tequila, so you put a nice tequila shot in there. I mean, you have to put things that were special to that person, and their picture, and of course this bread. It's the things that make it special, the altar, unique. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoy this beautiful Mexican tradition, and see you in the next video, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please watch the other videos. Just click on the links, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you.